see how awkward this is? Today we're here with Alina.
Hi.
And we are talking about how the smallest head movements in a portrait can make a huge difference in the end result. Alina, you ready to shoot?
Absolutely, let's go.
Let's go. Alright, when it comes to head movements and head positioning, the first most obvious thing that most people think of is the chin, and having the chin more out versus more in, and what that can do for your picture. Now in general, it's a good rule of thumb to have your model's chin a bit more out and slightly down as opposed to in. Having the chin in can look more scared, more reserved, more in their shell as opposed to more confident when they have it out. Combining this with the actual angle that you're taking the picture with can really show a sense of confidence, fierceness, or even strength for the model's pose. And again, this is a very subtle thing because if you go too far, you'll end up looking like a goose like this. Like that's really, really awkward. And if you go too far in, obviously you're gonna look like you're like really scared and all this stuff. So you want to find a happy medium where the model still looks natural and relaxed, like they're not forcing their chin outwards too much, but just enough that it gives them that sense of confidence with the pose. So on Alina here, this is her in a natural state. And if we have her chin more in, right, it's a very subtle thing, but there you go. Immediately you can tell that she looks a bit more reserved, a bit more inward, like in her shell. Whereas if we bring her chin out just a bit like this, look at that immediately. And this is just on video, not even in the pictures yet. You can tell she has a much more confident look to her. She feels better in her own body. All this stuff will come across in the picture. The mic can pick it up, but they're back sawing again for like a fourth day in a row. Anyways, the second part of this video is all about head tilting and how the tilt of a head can change the energy and change the overall look of what the model is doing ever so slightly. This one is very, very subtle because with a straight head like this, right, this has a purpose. It's very straight on, very fastball down the middle, very neutral. Whereas if you tilt your head too much, it can look overly posed and ironically too stiff. Like if my head was like all the way here, like that would look really, really awkward. But a very subtle head tilt can go a long way. So on Alina here, we've got her posing, and this is what a straight face looks like, right? It's great, very neutral, very fastball down the middle, and it honestly has a purpose for some style of shooting. But I think especially for more lifestyle shots and commercial photography, having a slight head tilt, just like that. Like, I can't even express, I know you watching at home just noticed that difference, because that already is adding a whole different element to the scene. It adds another level of interest for the viewer to look at, and it just makes the pose feel more immersive. Alright, part 3, and arguably the most subtle one of this whole bunch, is nose direction. And the reason that nose direction is important, especially with portraits, is because the nose is, most of the time, the thing that sticks out the most on a model's face, and therefore can or cannot create the most depth on their face if done correctly. Now, if you shoot a model directly straight on, like literally technically straight on, the nose is not going to have any depth effect onto the face, or it'll have very minimal depth effect onto the face. But if you have even the most slight head turn or camera movement turn to add that depth and dimension onto the model's face, it can just accentuate the model's facial features and therefore make the portrait that much more impactful. So on Alina here, let me just try and get the camera dead center. It's so hard to do on a really wide lens, but this is literally straight on. And this looks amazing because we have directional light coming from her left-hand side of her face like this. And so there is natural fall off going from this side to that side of the face. But if we actually turn Alina facing the sun, turn over here, if she is straight on to the sun and her face is straight on to the camera, there's a lot less depth now created by the nose because there's no shadow fall off from the light source. That's a lot of technical speak, but just so you know, by having a slight head turn to the left or right, see that? Even that is a lot. You don't even need to go that far along the time, but that will add more depth to the face by, again, bringing out the nose and adding dimension to the image. Alright, the fourth point is actually my personal favorite, and it is all about eyes, and specifically where the eyes are landing and where they're directed towards. Now, typically when the eyes are looking at the camera, they're obviously looking right at the viewer. So you get a sense of focus, you get a sense of connection with the viewer of the photograph, and there's that almost intimacy level between you and the model, if you're the viewer, but whatever, you and the picture. Whereas if the model is looking off camera, even ever so slightly, there's a sense of mystery and wonder, and you're kind of questioning what they're looking at, and it adds, again, another element to the frame. With this, neither is right or wrong, and there's a purpose for both, but they can each tell a slightly different story. So with Alina, here's an example of Alina looking right at the camera. Again, there's a very good connection with you, the viewer, and her, the model. Very straight on, makes a lot of sense. But if she ever so slightly looks away off camera, and I can play with my angle, she can tilt her head even, things like that. That will just create another dimension to this whole story of the portrait. And again, she can combine this by having her head turn that way, but then bringing her eyes back to me. That's a whole different thing altogether. Or vice versa, if her head is facing right towards me, coming back to the same neutral pose, but then her eyes are shifting away from me, like that, right? That's also interesting. You can play with all these different head and facial and eye directions to tell a slightly different story and therefore have a different impact on the image. Alright, the fifth and final thing to remember is actually both equally important for you, the photographer, and the model, and that is to shoot the in-between moments. It's very easy to pose your model and have them stand in the exact position that you think might look the best, but you learning the photographer and teaching the model how to transition between poses can sometimes result in the best pictures ever. In fact, some of the best pictures that I've ever taken were those transitional pictures between poses because, ironically, they're the most natural looking and therefore the most human looking, which I always look for in a good portrait. So sometimes you'll have your model posed in a way that, you know, we both agree on in whatever way that might be, and that looks fantastic. But those subtle movements between poses where she turns her head in a different direction or she decides to look a different way for one shot or two shots or whatever that might be, those transitional shots, in my opinion, look the best. Alina, is your coffee cold? No.
Yeah, like I'm having the 6th cup today, so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it's okay.
Well, that is how head movements make a huge difference in the portraits that you take. Alina, thank you so much for shooting today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Make sure you guys go give Alina a follow on Instagram. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe down below. But until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Ciao.